want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for themselves. Remington, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
We met at my book signing event, and you came up to me and said, I've got a wild story, and I want to share it on your podcast.
Yeah.
And we spoke, and man, your story has a lot of layers to it. It's going to be like peeling an onion today.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they'll even bring tears from this onion. Who knows?
Yeah,
So.
I might.
But you have a story of being a victim in childhood from someone who's supposed to be your protector, which is your father. And there's a lot of other layers to this story, though. It involves the mob, and it involves police in tactical gear surrounding your house,
Raids.
SWAT teams, and we're going to get into that. But I'm honored you're here, and this is the next step in a healing journey, is to free yourself from your past, is to speak about it.
Thank you for having me. I know that you say that I came up and I said, well, I have an amazing story to tell, but I might have blacked out at that point.
Oh, yeah?
There's obviously something so incredibly daunting about sharing your story, but I felt like it was very important. I did want to share the mantra that this is victim to victor. This is me taking control of my own story, and my intent here today is to spread awareness, to let people know that there's a safe place with me, and that they can speak with me, they can come forward, and that there is so much healing that comes from it. And it's a complicated story. Like you mentioned, there are so many layers to it. It's not an easy thing to get into, but I think the idea that people don't talk about it, predators live in that silence. They love it. They are like, well, the mantra is, well, of course women wouldn't coming forward, or men, or of course people wouldn't do this and that, because nothing ever comes of it. That's always the mantra. Well, nothing ever comes of it because people do not talk about it. And there's safety for perpetrators when there's silence.
This episode of the Free Like Me podcast is sponsored by Scarred, a memoir of a childhood stolen and a life reclaimed, by Clark Fredericks. Available now in all major retailers and for Audible listening.
Your story involves a lot of other victims too.
Correct.
And we'll just touch on that. But this is your journey, and let's get started. You're a fellow Sussex County, New Jersey resident, like I was for most of my life. And where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Branchville, so not very far from where you grew up as well. And I actually still reside in New Jersey. Growing up, I grew up on a little farm. We had cows, chickens, stuff like that, a lot of property, very recluse and remote. And growing up was not fun. It was not a good home environment. It was very toxic, kids being thrown downstairs, hospital visits, lots of abuse, financial abuse, unhygienic environments. It just was not a very good life. But on the outside, we were the family that went to Sparta Evangelical Free Church and showed up in our Sunday best every Sunday and sold chicken eggs and stuff like that. And we were the beloved family. And then everything kind of blew up in, I think it was 2017.
Now, you had told me you were homeschooled.
Yes.
So, and homeschooling isn't all it's cracked up to be.
Absolutely not.
So let's peel apart the homeschooling environment.
Oh, this is a fun one. So my mother, I have a very complicated relationship with my mother. Hit or miss, good and bad. A lot of complications. Don't know where we stand right now. That's fine. But going off of that, Mom wanted to spend a lot of time with us. I believe that she loves us. I believe that she to this day loves all of us. I don't think she had any idea how to show that. And her way of doing that was not to educate me when I was at home with math or reading or anything like that. She would take us on adventures. So we would go skiing or hiking or playing in the mud, or she would just let us outside and say, go find some animals. One time we made squirrel soup after we got a pellet gun and got one. Like, we were just free for all, just doing whatever, which was great. But by the time that I had gotten into high school, I went to a Christian conservative high school. They asked me to point out something on the map. I had no idea where it was. And they said, well, go north. And I went left. And they said, well, go south. And I went right. Because when I was a freshman in high school, I had no idea where north, south, east, west was. I didn't know how to do complicated multiplication, division, math. I was effectively an idiot. I knew nothing because I had just been neglected educationally my whole life. And I was sheltered. I wasn't allowed to even ride the bus, even when I went to a Christian middle school for 2 years, because they would indoctrinate me. Everything was so incredibly and fastidiously structured so that we were the buffer for Paul. We were the family that when you looked at them, you just said, nothing's wrong with them. They're fine. They're going to church. She went to high school and she's getting grade 8s, or they're in a Christian high school, private school. They're playing sports. Everything's great. And we were the buffer that stopped questions from getting to Paul. But inside the house, it was hell.
Do you know whose decision it was to have you guys homeschooled? Was it your jointly?
I think Paul definitely pushed for it, saying that the system wasn't good, that kids in school weren't learning enough. They didn't have a chance to be a kid. And like elements of that might be true, but I think that's why he was so persuasive. And I think that mom agreed. She was like, yeah, kids should be playing in mud. They should have fun. And in itself, it's a beautiful premise and might even be true. But I did not get education at all.
She sounds like one of these free-spirited, women from the 60s almost, living on a commune type.
Yep.
Is that
my mom,
her personality?
My mom ran from her home life, and she just never stopped running. She's still running to this day from everything, and I think that she might be working on it more, and our relationship has developed more where she's getting help and a lot better, but she does run. She goes gallivants off into upstate New York, and then she goes to Utah, and then she goes to Oregon, and she just gets in her car and she goes and she does things and goes on these adventures and cross-country skiing, whatever it might be, because I think she always has to stay moving, so her thoughts just don't catch up to her.
That's a lot of us,
Yeah.
live that way.
I never do that.
Was there love growing up? Like, did she tell you guys she loved you? Did your father tell you guys he loved you? Did he and your mother share intimacy, holding hands, pecks on the cheek, anything like that?
Such a loaded question, because love is displayed in so many different ways. Like I said, I do believe that my mother loved me. She would bake things for me. She would try to check in and talk to me, not knowing how. She would notice bad behaviors because, obviously I was acting out a lot. So she would notice that. She would try in her way to address it. But I have always said and will continue to say that we were a buffer family, and love in that family was conditional. And my mother used to joke that in our house, we don't have tough love, we just have tough. And that was the joke, because it was pretty much like, don't cry about it, just function. And that's what I did. That's what I did all the way up until November, when I had a breaking point. Or December, actually. And you would just get good grades. You would go to school. You would get, do all that. And as long as you were okay. But as soon as you stopped or you stepped out of line, you saw the wrath. And Paul was not loving. He would never say, I cannot actually remember a single time like even one single time that Paul had said, I love you. I don't think I've ever heard that from my father. He was not loving. He was angry. Dyfus was called a couple of times. He was a drunk. He was abusive physically, financially, emotionally, mentally, in every way you can imagine. There was nothing positive about growing up with Paul. He was a monster every single way. And it wasn't until I moved out and actually went to school that I realized how bad it was, because we were so sheltered and kept from the world that I had no idea the gravity of what I was living through.
Why did you go to high school at a Christian school? Why not continue the homeschooling straight through your high school years?
I begged and begged to go to even a private Christian school, to go to, if they were worried about indoctrinations, or to go to public school.
What type of indoctrination, and who was worried about it? Both your parents?
Yeah, strong evangelical Christians, but culty, like to the point where like no other belief systems held any merit. It was like their way or the highway, and like you could not even listen to opposing views. Religion in and of itself is fine, but when you close yourself off to other opinions and views and theories because you're afraid they might be right or that they might change your perspective, that's just a very close-minded way to live. And that was the way that we lived, where anything that was not evangelical Christian was sinful. It was bad. It was terrible. You don't talk about it. You don't question it. You just believe what you believe and go with it.
With your homeschooling, is there a lot of religious belief into your homeschooling?
Yes, there was a lot of religious belief, and that was kind of the only thing that we were taught.
Actually taught?
Yes, yeah.
The rest was just go out and find an adventure?
Yeah, we would go to, groups, homeschool groups, and they were all religious, and we would go to church, and that was my opportunity to meet and socialize with other people, but I really was not brought out into the world, into the public very often. I was kind of holed up there for a lot of my childhood, and even when I went to college, they said, well, help you. My father, he came to me and he said, I'll help you with your first semester, but only if you go to a Christian college. Your older sister went to a public college, and look how that turned out. She's ruined. You need to go to a Christian college. And otherwise, they wouldn't have helped. So I did. I went to Liberty University, and I got my degree and got through it. I worked 3 jobs, took 21 credit hours, and did what I need to do. But yeah, it was so important to Paul, because I think that it protected him, or protected us from realizing what was going on. And even in his journal, he wrote, my kids are adults now. Manipulation doesn't work on adults. Need to use other tactics, because that was his manipulation. And when we grew up and started to become cognizant, as we saw others, it was a problem.
You said there was all sorts of abuse. So let's start pulling the curtain away from.
Yeah.
You mentioned getting pushed downstairs or
Yeah.
food being withheld.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into the sexual abuse. So what exactly was going on? On a day-to-day basis, week to week, month to month, year to year.
An average day at the house would Paul go to work, Mom would create breakfast, lunch, pack them all, drive us all to school if we were in school, High school was like private schools, like Veritas Christian Academy in Sparta. I went there. Also Sparta Evangelical.
But even younger, when you're
Yeah.
homeschooled, when you're living completely at the house, never even getting out, what's going on a regular basis?
I mean, he would work a lot, come home.
And what did he do?
He would drink. He would come home and drink and be kind of like belligerent, angry. So we would all sit at the table. Nobody would talk. It was just silence. Like every once in a while, some conversation would be had. It wasn't, how was your day? And he would just complain about work, complain about us, complain about what we were doing, even though he wasn't an active part of it. He was always gone. And then when he came home and we dared to go against him, he would get abusive. There are videos somewhere of him just, one of our dogs had jumped up onto the garage, grabbed a burger, and he just took his hand and just started beating the dog on the deck, thinking that nobody was seeing it, and we heard the yelps. And another, time, he and my younger sister, she was a child at this time, I think like 10 years old. They were in an altercation, and he pushed her down the stairs, and she fell all the way down these wooden stairs. And then he took a dresser and he pushed it, and he pushed it down the stairs after her, on top of her. So he was not a nice person.
And then where did things between you and he start to get sexual? What age and what started?
So the first time that I just remember being uncomfortable was when he would put Vicks on me, and he would do that, with a lot of the kids. He would say, "You have cold, this will help you sleep," stuff like that. And
So he's rubbing Vicks on your chest.
yeah, so he would take Vicks and he would rub on her chest and just go kind of everywhere. And then he would tuck us in, and he would like take his hands and push it underneath our body and get like gropey with it, and push the covers underneath. And then it got worse. It progressively just got to a point where when you look back at it, you realize, oh, this was abuse. He would shower with us, and that was kind of his go-to thing. And we would go in the shower, and I remember a distinct time where I don't know how old I was, but I know how tall I was, because I was like eye level with him, his penis. And I looked at it because I was like a kid, and I'm like, oh, what's happening? Like, what is that? Because he had started to get erect. And his thing, he had a fetish for butts. So previous to that, he had set me up on this little pedestal shelf type thing and had washed me. And I suppose that had done something. And set me down. I asked what it was, and he's like, well, why don't you play with it? Why don't you touch it? Why don't you do whatever with it? And I did. Curious, right? And obviously he had gotten off to that. And there were other forms of abuse, but unfortunately, as it came out, I wouldn't remember many of those, because he would take Ambien and put them into milkshakes for us as our treat and drug us. And then in the middle of the night, he would go upstairs and then come downstairs after he was done.
Yeah, you also told me he would check you for ticks.
Yes.
That was another one of his things, right?
Yes, and that didn't extend to just me. Unfortunately, his abuse extends to mostly a lot of my friends, actually, and many others that were at the church, that were in the community, and I'm sure many others that haven't even come forward yet. It was both male and female. And he would check for ticks as like a way of getting these people undressed and to grope them. And he did that with not just me again, but with many other people. So he would say like, oh, you were out playing. Let me check you for ticks. We want to make sure that there are no ticks. And he would do this and set us up on the porch in like a line, me and all of our friends. And he would just go one by one down the line, feeling, spreading everything. Oh, sorry. And looking for ticks.
So if you had 4 friends over playing from church,
yeah,
he would get all 4 or 5 of you lined up on the deck with your clothes off to check for ticks?
correct.
Huh.
He would put us on, like, there was a deck. It was gray. I'll remember it because whenever I was under abuse, I would fixate on something. So there's always one specific detail that I always remember. And I remember that it was a gray deck, and we had chairs, and he would plop us up onto where you would sit on the chair, feet up, and then just literally go down the line. And there was one instance, unfortunately, where he was like, I think you have a tick, to one of my friends. And had pulled her away into the bedroom. And we later found out that she had been pretty severely abused during that time.
Is your mother around at all when he's showering with you, when he's got 5 little kids naked on the deck checking for ticks? What's her thought process?
Her excuse was that this is just kind of how she grew up. Like they grew up on a tree farm and they were out doing this and doing that and getting muddy and whatever. And yeah, of course there's ticks. And the adult part of me is like, why would you ever have the man check for the ticks? Like you're the mother. And if they're old enough like to check for themselves, have their parents, like you don't need to be doing this. It seems like common sense to me, but my mom was on autopilot, and I'm not defending her in any way, but I do think that she maybe didn't realize how bad it was, but later there were times when it was clear that it was bad, and people didn't do anything. A lot of people didn't do anything. I counted at least 13 adults that knew and did not say a word.
From the church?
From the church, from parents of abused victims to grandparents to my own mother, like a lot of people, a lot of capable adults knew and did not protect these children. And that's almost harder to get over the abuse, to be honest.
Yeah, abusers always have people that look the other way,
Yeah.
turn a blind eye, whether it's a priest or a Boy Scout leader or a
Yeah.
coach or a teacher, Do you know why do you think people didn't do anything?
I don't know. I think the most concerning one to me, and I am 100% going to call their name out. Sparta Evangelical Free Church. I'll look into the camera when I do this. The pastor, Doug Tuen, of that church was informed of Paul's behavior and that one of the congregation members' children had been abused. And it was actually one of the abused mothers that went to Doug and said this and told me that she had said this. She said, keep that man away from my kids. He's a fucking pedophile. Doug was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And Paul remained on the board of trustees. He did mud runs where he would power wash because he owns a painting company, Spectrum Coatings. He would power wash kids after mud runs. He would take them on hay rides. He would do breakaway boys camp. He would be so incredibly involved. He did the soundboard for the church. They kept him in all of those positions and on the board of trustees. And they hid his abuse in that church. And more victims were later abused. And I'm sure there are many more that haven't come forward. It's not.
Is he still involved with the church?
He asked to come back, and then another victim's family's father came forward and said, you will not have this man back. And I think at that point they had said, no, okay, we're not going to. But it was only a point where it became a liability. They were like, oh, this is getting too much traction. When it was a secret, they were fine with putting their entire congregation at risk. Every single child in there, where they say that they protect in that church. It's a safe haven for the ill. And they're bringing a pedophile, a known pedophile into it and just saying, just don't look. And that enrages me so much.
So an abuse victim's parents came forward to the church to the pastor, two separate parents.
Yep.
And brought allegations about Paul.
Yes. Not only that, they gave him access to kids. They were like, sure, do the breakaway soccer camp, do the basketball, do the mud runs, do the shooting club. He had full range and access. And I guarantee you, they didn't run a background check or anything on them. So it's just, I work in insurance, and the insurance is pricier for churches. They have to have abuse and molestation. Other businesses don't. Churches do. And when they do, we ask, do you run background checks? Do you do this? Because when you don't have those safeguards, pedophiles will literally target statistically churches that don't have those safeguards, knowing that they will protect them. And that's exactly what happened at Sparta Evangelical Free Church.
Is the pastor still the same pastor?
He is. They just put a large addition on. So it's funny, Gavin and I drove by and I said, do you want to know what paid for that addition? And he said, what? And I said, victim silence is what paid for that addition.
Now, your father was also involved in other abuse allegations, even out of state, correct?
Correct. In
So,
upstate New York.
upstate New York, and wasn't there something in Texas as well?
Everything kind of blew up in 2017 when there was and I'll get to New York, this is the lead up. There was a garage sale from a family member, an immediate family member of mine. They had sold a jacket. Somebody had purchased that jacket who just so happened to have police connections. They opened up the jacket, looked in the pocket, and there were a series of questions. Did he touch you? How much did he touch you? What happened? How long did this last? Those are just maybe examples, but like ones along those lines where it was asking about abuse, and they wrote down the answers as well, which was very odd. This person read it and found it to be so concerning that they called the police. The police showed up at our home in Branchville, New Jersey, and questioned Paul. As it turned out, in upstate New York, we had a little shower. He had taken one of my family members into that shower and performed a lot of various types of abuse within that shower to my cousin. And after that had happened, that cousin had told one of my siblings. That sibling then went to my mother and immediately told my mother. Obviously, the police came, and that was when we all started to look back at our own memories and be like, oh, the showers, that was abuse. The Vicks, that was abuse, And that's when really the pot flew over, blew up or whatever you want to say, and things started gaining momentum. At that time, that was the only victim we knew about. And then more and more came forward.
You mentioned a shower in upstate New York, but a shower where? At a cabin you owned, or?
Yeah, so there's a little cabin in upstate New York that my family owns. My younger sister and two of my cousins had gone up there with my father when they were younger. At the time, this young girl was 6 years old. And they went up there for like a fun trip where it was like, we're going to go swimming, we're going to go hiking, we're going to go get ice cream and stuff like that. And the cousin had gone into the shower. She couldn't figure it out. She asked my sister to assist her. And my sibling, again, then couldn't figure it out either. So she had gone to Paul to say, hey, can you help me figure this out? And they got it started or something, I guess. And then at that point in time, he used the ticks thing. He said, let me check you for ticks. Let me check you for ticks. So he started to check her body, and he took photos. He was groping her and took many, many photos. Afterwards, my cousin had told my sister, and my sister was like, what? She believed her. And she went to go down to the car and to try to get the camera. She said, we need to get this camera. And at this time, my sister's like 8 years old. So props to her, honestly, because a kid doing that, and scary. We didn't love our father. Still to this day, we don't. I mean, I won't speak for others, but we fear mostly. So out of fear, and she still did it. And he found her trying to find the camera in the car. And he literally grabbed her and yanked her out of the car, started screaming, and then took the camera and then went into the room and was there for a while, and then came out. And I guess my younger sister went through the camera again, and it was empty at that point. And they drove back to New Jersey. And at that time, my sibling told my mother, and that was when my mother for sure knew about it.
And what happened in Texas?
In Texas, Paul was desperate to keep everything under wraps. The police had called. He started threatening us and saying, don't talk to them. This is a family matter. We'll get a lawyer. You don't talk to them. You don't want to know what happens to you when you talk to them. And he was a very, terrifying person. He did pretty messed up things. So we took that seriously. It was a warning, a very serious one. And we were scared to talk to the police, to talk to anyone. And
is something come up in the family where you guys are talking to the police?
Before I physically went to the police, a lot of things happened. Initially, it came out about my cousin. Then Paul went into basically trying to contain everything, trying to get everything back into control. And part of that was Texas. He said, we need to go to Texas to go to Jake Porter, and we need to do a family intensive, a family incentive and everything. And
What's Jake Porter?
Jake Porter is a counselor, Christian counselor, marital counselor, for people that have sex addiction issues, I think. And he's located in Texas. So Paul flew all the way down there with Michelle, my mom, and they went to this intensive where there was a polygraph, and we all were able to write a series of questions, yes or no questions, to ask Paul throughout this polygraph.
You guys were all there with your parents?
No.
Oh.
We were informed that it was a family intensive, and then I started researching the counselor, and I said, this is not a family intensive. You guys are trying to save your marriage, and all of us were not doing well. And I'm like, is anyone going to get us therapy? Like, I'm so glad that you're spending all this money to go to Texas to heal yourself and your marriage. So that's what they did. And my mom went, and I think that she might have, well, she did know that it was to try to repair the marriage, and she went. And I don't know if she went to get more information or out of trying to actually repair it. But during that polygraph, many things came up, including the fact that he drugged kids with Ambien. More victims came up. We discovered more names and a lot more information during that polygraph. And then halfway through it, they stopped it and they said, we can't help you. They looked over at Michelle and they said, you need to cancel this entire thing. You need to get a flight, and you need to go home. You need to leave this man here, and you need to get your kids away from him and never see him again. Like, this man is extremely dangerous. He's not healthy. He's not right. Like, there's no saving you. Get out. And my mom flew back immediately, did not file for divorce. And then I didn't have the money to move out. My younger sister didn't either. And I had left when I was 17, and I couldn't leave her in that house again. So we stayed living there with my mom, knowing this, never telling us about the Ambien, about all of that for like a year and a half before I got a job, and I was finally able to get me and my younger sister out, and we were able to get out of the house. But yeah, that was Texas, the polygraph.
How did that all come out?
Paul apparently initiated it.
All the stuff about Ambien and other kids?
No, my mom had suspicions. So she, I guess, had asked those questions, which again is a little sketchy. I mean, you can't ignore the fact that that's just a little sus.
How did you become aware of what the questions even were? What happened down there?
The investigators. It was deductive reasoning. So they randomly pulled me in and they were like, we just need to ask you some questions. I said, okay. So I come to the prosecutor's office and they're like, did Paul ever make any treats for you? And I'm like, yeah, he made milkshakes. And they said, okay, was there anything special about that milkshake? Was it normal for him to make those for you? And I said, no, Paul would never do anything for us. It was so weird when he made them, but we clung on to it because it was like, of course, you're a kid. You want your father to love you. You're just like, this is so nice. Yay, us a moment. But he had kept drugs, Ambien specifically, in the freezer. So when he grabbed the ice cream, he would grab that too, and he would mix it into the milkshake. And they asked, is there anything special about these milkshake? And I said, he used extract. He would use this almond extract or pistachio extract that tasted horrible. But you would chug it down just thinking like, this is the only time that I'm going to get fatherly affection. And like, don't piss him off. Just drink it and have it. And like, we would have that, and it was drugged with Ambien. And through these leading questions, obviously, I'm looking at them like, why are you asking me this? And then I looked over at them and I said, oh my God, milkshakes, he keeps drugs in the freezer. He was drugging me in these, weren't they? And it wasn't he. And he was like, we can't confirm that, you know. I called my mom and she said, I told them not to tell you. I told them never tell my girls about this. So she was trying to keep this from us. The only way that I found out about it is because they asked me, and I put two and two together.
All right, I'm slightly confused why the prosecutors were even involved to come ask you. From this Texas trip or from something else?
The Texas trip happened. My mother went to the police to give her statement. In that statement, she mentioned the milkshakes. And that was not a part of my statement when I gave it to the police.
Why did she go to the police?
To give her own information of what she had, what she knew about Paul.
She went after that Texas trip or from a totally different reason?
After the Texas trip. So
she came back and decided on her own accord to go to the police?
I would say own accord with heavy persuasion. No, not heavy, but I did, tell her, like, we're going with or without you. So you want to be a part of this or not?
This is when you went.
Yes. So this is after I went.
That's what I mean.
Right. So the time.
So it wasn't directly after
Right.
Texas.
This is a year and a half after I found out about this. So we were living in the house with Paul, with my mom knowing that this had happened. And the polygraph saying, get out of there, get your kids out of there. She didn't tell us any of this. We stayed in the house for a year and a half. And only after we moved out and went to the police ourselves did it come forward through just talking to the people that I put 2 and 2 together, what had happened.
All right. So a year and a half, roughly,
Yeah.
after Texas,
Mm-hmm.
you decide to go to the police?
Yes.
A year and a half later. And you're how
Yeah.
old at that time?
23?
23-ish?
24-ish, yeah.
24?
Yeah.
What made you want to go to the police?
It's been a long time coming. As the investigation unfolded, there was absolutely nothing I wanted to do to compromise it. I said, I just do not want to look back and say, I screwed this up, So I laid low. But things changed. Some things happened and some things came forward and more victims are, coming forward and everything. And my mom is now officially divorced from Paul. So now that she's officially divorced, everything's ended. I said, there's no harm I can do by coming forward. Only good can come from this. So it was the right time, but it was something that I'd thought about for a long, long time.
So when you decided you were ready to speak to authorities, what agency did you go to?
I went to the state police.
Okay. And gave testimony on your childhood and what Paul had done to you? Or are you giving what other information that you know of what he's been involved in? Like the New York State or the evangelical church, or are you telling them whatever you know?
All of the above. Yeah. I came forward and I was not the only one. It was me, one other sibling, and my mother. All 3 of us came forward at the same time. We went together. I went first, my sister went second, and then my mom went third. And it was, I want to say, 45 to an hour long. Which doesn't seem very long.
For each one of you or for all of you together?
For each one of us.
Okay. How did you get your mom to get involved?
I think there was a lot of pressure because both of us were going. And it would have looked really bad if we were all there together and she didn't. And the first thing one of the first things she said when she came out of the barracks is like, I might be going down for child endangerment. And I looked at her and I said, yeah. You might. Because the reality is she did keep us in a dangerous situation. How we've reconciled that, I don't know. But the reality is it wasn't something that she was stoked about, I would say, coming forward. But there was a lot of zeal coming from my side. I was like, let's go.
So I just want to make sure I got this. So you and one of your siblings together talk and are like, we should go to the police about Paul.
Yeah.
And then you go to your mother and say, we're going to go to the police. You want to come with us? Something like that?
So Paul had attempted suicide. And this was after all of us had moved out, including my mother, and he was alone. I think this was an effort to try to pull us back in. So he was in the hospital for 2 weeks. So we had 2 weeks where Paul could not access us. It was impossible for him to get out of that location. He was basically locked up in like a suicide place. And we all looked at each other, and I looked at my sister and I said, it's now. We have to do this now. This is the only time that we are safe to do this, and we need to get all of mom's stuff out of that house while he's not there, put it in a storage unit, and we all need to be gone, and we need to do it now. And we did. And I kept pushing and pushing and pushing. And my younger sister was out at night, like in 3 a.m., putting stuff in a storage unit. It was a whirlwind, just trying to get everything we could out of the house so that we would be safe. You know, we didn't we had moved out. Paul didn't know where we lived, or at least we thought so. So we said now is the only safe time for us to come forward, because he did have a lot of connections.
So his suicide attempt then, that was precipitated you going to the state police.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of what I found there, because I arrived at the scene before I even knew a suicide had happened. I got a random text from my cousin, who never texts me, saying, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He said, "There's police at your house." And I said, "Well, I'm going to go check it out." So I left my apartment and I drove to Paul's house. And I mean, it's not like I visit often, you know, I didn't want to go back. Saw no trucks, went into his office, and there was an array of whatever suicide thing he had going on. And I was reading over all of it, and I decided to investigate, and I took a bunch of pictures of his journals, his laptop, everything that I could find. And there were group chats of him with other pedophiles talking about kids and how they viewed them and how they view what they called normies, and just weird things. And you cannot read those journals, how he viewed me as nothing, how he says in a group chat that the child is a problem because how dare they exist, they're tempting him, and so on and so forth. That fills you up with so much resolve that there's nothing fatherly about this person. This is just a monster. I don't even think this is human. And once that switch goes off, you feel no remorse going to the police. It's deserved. Even though it's my father, I would do it 1,000,000 times over. I would just do it better.
Then we're going to get into now the video I saw of
Yeah.
you know, whether it's a SWAT team or police in tactical gear with like night vision goggles and AR-15s, full like black commando outfits,
Yeah.
swarming your house, and this is all on your security cameras.
Mm-hmm.
How long after you went to the state police is that video?
About 1 month. It's almost exactly 1 month.
I mean, to bring someone in for an allegation of childhood sexual abuse, I mean, nobody's been charged yet.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, having interviewed the prosecutor in my case and talking to him, you know, about pedophiles and people wanted me to question him how like a drug dealer can get a longer sentence than a pedophile.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, you know, we have to be, you know, cognizant of what facts we actually have versus what we don't have. You know, if you have a drug dealer with a kilo of coke, you have facts.
Right.
If you have a 5-year-old saying someone touched me wrong, you know, we have to, you know, take that all into context and interview the person being accused. So like you don't go into bring in someone for questioning for an allegation in full combat tactical gear. So what do you think that was all about?
Something fishy is going on, and I still to this day say that because the answers that I'm getting are not lining up. I was informed that there were over 40 personnel at that location that night. 40 for one single man, and they came at 6 o'clock in the morning with night vision goggles through the woods, pulled in I think it was two unmarked vans after they had detained him. So like they only showed the vans afterwards, and there was only one cop vehicle. Everything else was unmarked. and a van that showed up after the fact, after they raided it. And they had like literal, like you said, massive guns, night vision goggles, like tactical gear, bulletproof vest. I mean, they were full on ready. And I asked the prosecutor, what did you think you were walking into that justified 40 armed personnel? And they said, we can't comment on that.
Can't comment.
Can't comment.
And now this sort of goes into what you say is your father's involvement with the mob.
Yes.
All right. First off, how did
Yeah. Clark, there's so many things that don't line up
First
here.
off, how did you get the security footage? How did you get that?
Paul's camera. And we like got into it when we were in upstate New York, my mom and I, because she had access and like guessed his password or something. And we were getting live footage watching this unfold. And we screen recorded it because, you know, it's crazy. And of course, you'd want to keep it. But yeah.
All right. I was wondering how you got that.
Little wise camera. Yeah. Crazy.
So the house being surrounded by at least 40 heavily armed SWAT team members, commandos, whatever they were, you believe this is because of your father's involvement in the mob?
Yeah. Yeah. I had asked the prosecutor, like, what did you think you were walking into that merited having 40 plus armed officers coming through at the night, you know? And there were a lot of questions that arose out of this, and more suspicious things kept happening. There was somebody who went to Sparta Evangelical Free Church, and when she attended there, she became rather close to our family. Paul had even thrown her a bachelorette party in upstate New York as just a gift for her getting married and everything. And he was uncharacteristically close to her. Recently, it came out that she had committed suicide here in New Jersey, and that somebody who was on the board of trustees at the Sparta Evangelical Free Church had abused her. And we suspected that it was Paul because it was abuse as a child, and she very much fit his narrative. And, you know, there were 2 other victims at the church already. So, we suspected again that it was him. However, after that, a lawyer got in touch with us and also thought that it was Paul, who's a friend of the person that commits suicide, and said, I want to represent you. I want it to be pro bono. I want to get Paul because I believe that our friend commits suicide because Paul abused her. And we started sharing information about our case, who was involved, what was happening, and we mentioned a farm. And before this, he already started to get suspicious and just weird about it. And he asked us to go on an off app where everything that we messaged to each other was like encrypted, not just texting. It was off the record. And then after that, he said, hey, are you familiar with this farm in New Jersey? And we said, yeah, you know, Paul used to send pictures of us to them to sponsor our 4-H. They're very involved in this area. Everyone in New Jersey like knows of this farm. And he said, that's getting too close to home to me. This is getting too serious. This is getting like dangerous. I'm going to have to bow out. And we just never heard from him again. Like, he didn't even formally saying, I have to bow out. He just bowed out. He never responded, never talked to us again. We followed up multiple times, nothing. He basically had said that this farm had been suspected, I suppose, of having mob connections and exploiting children and doing terrible things there. And it had connected back to Paul, that he was also involved with this. And as soon as this lawyer heard the name of this farm, they just ghosted us, which, of course, leads the question, how involved was Paul with the mob?
Right.
How many people are protecting him? Because this farm has law and political connections.
As far as you know, nothing's ever come about yet of you and your sibling and your mom going to the police with accusations about Paul, and he's never been brought up on anything.
Yes.
And in your mind, it's because you believe there's a bigger fish to fry with him than
Yes.
just an allegation about, and I don't mean to
Yeah.
downplay just an allegation about child sex abuse.
No, it's
but
fine.
but
There's a lot
there he may be
Mhm.
involved with a bigger puzzle,
Yeah.
and they want that puzzle versus the puzzle of childhood sexual abuse.
Right.
That's what you're thinking, right?
Which is in part why I'm here, because I think there are some serious rotten fish in the prosecutors and the law enforcement. Because as of now, I'll just let the viewers decide if 6 confirmed victims that all have corroborating stories, one in which remembers everything, that piece of paper that we found or that somebody found at the garage sale, a video camera that he had hidden under a couch, 2 video cameras that he had hidden within our childhood home that the police found that were recording us in the shower, when we were using the bathroom, everything that were hidden. We have him recording to both a detective and a prosecutor saying, "What did you use to drugs the kids?" And he admitted Ambien. And then I said, "You molested my friends." And he said, I know, it's terrible. This is both recorded and listened to by the prosecutor and the detectives. And this is just New Jersey. There's also a New York case. There's also the polygraph. There's also therapy records. I don't know if they could subpoena that for this. I feel like they could. There's also 3 victims, I think, that have come forward in New York, 6 in New Jersey. I mean, that's just off the top of my head what we already have. And then on top of that, a lawyer pulls out because they're scared of a mob-connected farm. When we go to the police, the detective looks at me and says, "You have the worst possible judge that you could have for this type of case." That's a weird thing to say to somebody, right? It's a little odd. I think that this all stinks of Paul being protected. And I don't know why, because Paul has a big mouth and Paul's not worth being protected, in my opinion.
I guess you just have to think that he's involved in something that they deem more important than a abuse allegation, and that they want him.
Yes.
They want him or who he's involved with
Yeah.
in that
The
investigation versus getting him on just a abuse allegation.
Yeah. Well, this leads me to my last point. The case was closed recently in New Jersey, which, broke my heart. And
Your
everything.
case was closed.
Yes, because they said not enough evidence. However, the FBI had picked up the case. We had called them and said, "I don't think this is going the way it should. Like something's really weird about the New Jersey police and the prosecutor's office right now. This isn't adding up. And I'm not getting the answers that I need." So I went to the FBI and I said, "You're not the state police are not doing the job that they need to be doing. You need to step in." And they did. And I don't know, and they can't tell us if the FBI is still working on this case. They could be, because I called the detective and I said, "Hey, it's been a year and a half." By the way, they didn't call us once to give us an update. Not a single time. I called about a year and a half after and I said, "What's going on with this case?" And he just casually is like, "Oh, yeah, I know, you guys called, the FBI is involved now and all of this," and just casually mentioned it. But I don't think that the FBI would get involved in a case unless they really thought something was there. And then on top of that, they confiscated Paul's laptops. They went to the state police, couldn't crack them. They went to this all the way to Germany, couldn't crack them. They went to the FBI, couldn't crack them. They finally went to the Secret Service, and then and only then were the laptops cracked, because he had VPN upon VPN upon VPN, and they found pictures of girls in bathing suits and stuff, and they said, "Oh no, that could be a family photo. It's not incriminating." But when you put it together with the dozens of victims and all the other evidence, and you find those pictures, how much more do you need?
How, I just want to
Yeah.
play devil's advocate here.
Sure.
How do you know that they took computers here, trying to crack them? How do
That
you
was
know
the
that?
update that we got, because after that big raid, we kept asking, what are on the laptops? What are on the laptops? There were so many VPNs on there. We said there has to be something. They just need to get through to it, right? And we kept calling for updates, and the update was, we can't get into it. We can't get into it. And then it was, we can't get into it. We needed to get a part from Germany. Then it was, we can't get into it. The part doesn't work for Germany. It's too complicated. We're sending them to Germany. Then it was, yeah, the update, we still can't get into it. Now the FBI is involved. Then it was, the FBI couldn't crack it. We're sending it to the Secret Service. And it took about 2.5 years for them to get into the laptops.
And it's not like they're going to tell you,
Yeah.
like, we got,
Yeah.
Paul kept very, delicate records of mob activity,
Yeah.
that we're going through right now.
Yeah.
They're just, and they're not going to tell you that. They just say, there was some bathing suit pictures.
Right. And it seemed,
Nothing in there.
yeah, nothing's
This heavily
in there.
guarded
Yes.
computer.
We
there
just
was
had to send it to Germany, the FBI, the Secret Service, and it took us 2.5 years to get through them and search through all of the content. But yeah, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing about this where you can put 2 and 2 together and have it make sense.
So your case, your allegations, your sibling allegations,
Yeah.
whatever your mother said in deposition, that's all been dropped.
Yeah. Right now, Paul could be in jail, incarcerated right now at this exact moment if there is an individual who's within the statute of limitations, a family member who could come forward, not a direct family member, but the cousin. And that could end the case. We've been told, like, this is slam dunk. We have what we need. We just need a statement. And unfortunately, at the time when that all came out, this cousin was under 18, and the adult or the guardian of the situation had decided not to move forward. I respect everyone's journey on how they come forward. However, this may be controversial. Genuinely believe that you need to come forward in order to find peace. I think that it's a really important part of healing. If all of a sudden a bunch of people are coming forward about their abuse, maybe they'll think twice, Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this is also, what keeps victims silent also is like people do come forward and then nothing happens.
Yes.
And then they're like, why should I come forward?
I understand that.
Yeah, it's
I do.
Unfortunately, this story has a lot of roots that we don't know where they lead to.
Yeah.
And that leaves you and your sibling high and dry as far as getting him brought up on charges and making him pay for his abuse.
Yeah.
And we still don't know, like, what's the play out.
Right.
Like, maybe he's cooperating, and maybe that's why they're
Making a deal.
maybe he's cut a deal and he's cooperating and feeding information.
He is cowardly. I wouldn't put it past him.
With the video we're gonna put into the podcast with the tactical gear cops, like, that's not done to go bring someone in on an allegation of abuse, because they're not charged yet.
Yes.
You're just gonna come in for a talk, and we want to ask you some questions and get your side of the story. You don't swarm a house, like that.
Yes. Yeah.
So that just begs the question: what's going on behind the scenes, which none of us really know.
No, we don't. I mean, obviously, I have my suspicions, and everything that I've laid out to you, I think it shows a clear picture where there's no misunderstanding of who Paul is. And that's one of the reasons I wasn't scared of Paul retaliating with defamation for me coming out and saying all of this, because I have so much more to prove that I'm right and that this happened than you do that it didn't, right? And anyone listening to my story, believes me, and there's no question about it. You see that video, you see the notes and everything, and you just can't imagine that he's not guilty. So to have that amount of force, over 40 personnel in these insane, like, night vision goggles, like, they didn't even risk coming during the day.
Right.
They were like, let's come in under the guise of night, not using flashlights. And apparently, when they knocked down the door, he was in his tighty whities. It was 6 o'clock in the morning, and he was doing curls in the middle of the living room. Like, and they said it was almost as if he knew that we were coming. He was aware that they were going to be there.
Hmm.
He didn't scream, wasn't surprised. He calmly, in the video, you can see it too. He just calmly flipped through the paper, licking his fingers, going to the next page, just seeing the legality of it. Didn't cry, didn't ask for a lawyer, just calmly sat there, not shaking, nothing.
I mean, it'll be curious to see if, anything major comes of this.
Yeah. Well, this isn't the end of my story. I myself am working on a book, and I don't think it's going to end anytime soon because my story isn't over just
Right.
yet. And
you played a clip before we started this of you recorded yourself confronting him.
yeah,
And this is the if a person wants to confront their abuser in order to like free themselves and move on in life, I'm all for it.
right.
If you're going to confront your abuser to get the apology you want from them, it never happens.
No.
And just like
Yeah.
like Paul refused denied everything, and you're like, I remember the showers, and he's just like, I don't know what you're talking about,
Right.
and that's what they all do. They can't let that guard down.
No, they can't. And like anyone out there listening who does want to like confront their abuser, I will say that there is something freeing that happened from that, because I did yell and like let it out, and I felt a power over him. I'm not scared of Paul anymore. I look at him and I see a weak, pathetic man that has no control. And that's what I see now. I don't see a scary man that's a perpetrator. Like, to me, he's just pathetic now. And like, I think that came from that yelling. But on the flip side, you could get that any other way. And I do not recommend doing it, because he's never going to apologize. He's never going to say, yes, I did it, which is what all victims want. We just want you to say, like, yes, it's true, I did it. At least for me. And I just am never going to get that from Paul. And after doing that visit did way more damage to me than it did good. I went through a really tough time after that.
You hit some dark times after you confronted him.
I went down this spiral of just not doing well. I had gotten out of a very toxic relationship where everything was, my fault. And I knew it was terrible and that this person was treating me terrible. I just didn't have like the strength to leave. I was so beat down. And after confronting him, and I just knew he's never going to admit it. He's never going to feel sorry. And I'm never going to get justice. And I went to this place where there was no hope left. And on December, I think it was literally like the 31st or somewhere around there, late in December. I think it was the day after Christmas. I spent the holiday sitting underneath my plastic tree with 0 gifts, crying alone, just thinking that I didn't have anyone. And the person I hated the most would never be in jail or the ground. And I couldn't live with that. And I tried to take my life. I took, I think it was 13 antidepressants. I don't really know how many there were. And I made it, obviously. But I was done. I was done with life. And something you said at our, or you or someone else said something where it feels like the only way to escape is either healing or death, right? Where like you have to heal or like you just die in soul. And I had to reach that point to get to where I am now, and I've come a long way since I got out of a toxic relationship. Have an amazing one now. He's here now.
Yay,
Shout
Gavin.
out to Gavin and his family too. His family they've embraced me as part of their family.
Oh, awesome.
And it's like I have a support system now, and it's great.
You got the family support system you never had.
I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Like
awesome.
his sister, like I always say, is like a big sister to me. And like his mom is, both of them text me today because they remembered. They're just amazing. Like that whole family. Phenom. But
Awesome.
yeah, so I've come a long way. There is a lot of hope, but during that time I didn't know anything but just try to survive, and surviving didn't cut it for me anymore, and I tried to take my life. And then I went to work that Monday. I was in the hospital on Friday. I fought and threatened legal action against the hospital if they kept me there because my deductible would renew on the first. I said it's going to be $5,000 to $10,000 in about 20 minutes. So you let me out or I get a patient advocate in here. I was like, I'm alive, but I don't want to be broke. I was like,
Right.
so I don't know how, but like I literally tried to commit suicide on a Saturday, and I went to work on Monday and didn't tell anyone. I just didn't know anything other than just buckle down and get through it. And I am happy as a different woman now, where I'm not buckling down and getting through it. I'm living. But yeah, long time.
All right. Any last words for the audience? Life lessons, regrets, daily habits, what keeps you sane? What would you want to share at the end here?
I think that what I just mentioned kind of was my life lesson, where there are moments where it seems insurmountable, where things become so incredibly difficult that like you try to just buckle down and get through it. Take a moment, get help, get therapy, talk about it with somebody that you trust. Living in silence is living in a regressive state. You're never going to move forward if you don't change how you feel in that moment and make actions to do that. So it's scary, it's rough, it's messy, but it makes your life a little bit more better. And I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks.
Interesting story.
It's a crazy one. There's a lot more to it. But
I think there's still more to play out.
There is.
We'll see.
Yeah.
After I read something on the news, I'll have you back in for part 2.
Yeah, this was like the spark notes, but I'm sure there will be more developments.
Thank you, Remington.
Thank you, Clark.
There you have it, everybody. Remington. And she was suicidal under her Christmas tree, alone, a toxic breakup, thinking life was over. Her father wasn't, there was no justice against what he had done. And yet here she is less than a year later. She has new love, a new family, and she's on the Free Like Me podcast. So never lose hope, people. Things do change. See you next week.